The Unsolved Archive. On a stormy Valentine's Day night in the year 2000, a 9-year-old girl did something completely out of character. She packed her book bag, left her home in the middle of the night, and walked alone into a thunderstorm. Multiple witnesses saw her. One tried to help. She ran into the woods and vanished. For 25 years, investigators have asked the same haunting question. Why would a shy, cautious child who was afraid of dogs and rarely opened the front door without permission willingly walk into the darkness? And now, in 2025, after a quarter-century of silence, the case is finally breaking wide open. DNA evidence, a drunken confession at a party, and text messages that could finally reveal what happened to Asha Degree. This is the Unsolved Archive. Chapter 1. The Perfect Family. Shelby, North Carolina. A small, tight-knit community in Cleveland County where everyone knew everyone, and children still played outside without fear. The Degree family embodied everything good about small-town America. Harold and Aquila Degree were devoted parents who centered their lives around their 2 children, their church, and their extended family. They were so protective that they didn't even have a computer in the house, worried about online predators that dominated news headlines in the late 90s. Their daughter Asha was 9 years old in February 2000. She wore pigtails, loved basketball, and was inseparable from her older brother, O'Brien. Teachers described her as introspective and talented. Friends knew her as shy and cautious. Her mother would later say, "She was scared to death of dogs. I never thought she would go out of the house." Asha wasn't a troubled child. She wasn't running from abuse or neglect. She was a 4th grader at Bolton Elementary School who did well in class and followed her parents' rules. But on the weekend of February 12th, something happened that seemed to bother her. During a youth basketball game that Saturday, Asha fouled out, and her team lost by just 1 point. It was crushing for the competitive 9-year-old. But by Sunday morning, when the family went to church together, she seemed fine. That Sunday night, February 13th, the storm rolled through Cleveland County. Lightning woke Asha from her sleep, and she joined her family in the living room to watch television until the storm passed. Then she went back to bed. It was the last normal moment the Degree family would ever know. Chapter 2. Valentine's Day. Around 2:30 in the morning on February 14th, Harold Degree checked on his children before going to bed himself. Both Asha and O'Brien were asleep in the room they shared. Everything was normal. At 6:30 that morning, Aquila Degree went to wake her children for school. Monday was a school day, and she wanted to get them up and ready. Her son was still under the covers, exactly where he should be. But Asha's bed was empty. Panic set in immediately. The Degrees searched every room, every closet, every corner of their home. No Asha. No signs of forced entry. No indication of how she had left. They called relatives who lived nearby. No one had seen her. At that point, Harold and Aquila called the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. What investigators found only deepened the mystery. Asha's book bag was missing. So were some of her clothes. Search dogs were brought in but found no promising scent trail to follow. It was as if the 9-year-old had simply vanished. But then, tips started coming in. 2 separate truck drivers contacted the sheriff's office. Both reported seeing a young black girl walking alone along Highway 18 around 4 in the morning. She was walking south, away from her home, in the opposite direction from where you'd expect a lost child to go. One of the drivers was so concerned that he turned his truck around and drove back to check on her. But when he approached, the girl became frightened. She left the roadside and ran into the woods. After that, no one saw Asha Degree again. Chapter 3. The search. The Cleveland County community mobilized immediately. Volunteers combed through the woods along Highway 18. Search parties covered every inch of the area where Asha had been spotted. Law enforcement brought in additional resources. And then they found something. Near the spot where Asha had been last seen, investigators discovered some of her personal belongings. Candy wrappers. A hairbell. Evidence that she may have taken shelter in a nearby storage shed during the storm. But the shed had been empty for days by the time it was searched. If Asha had been there, she was long gone. The sheriff's office held a press conference on February 22nd, announcing they were going long range with the investigation. The FBI and North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation joined the case. Asha was added to national databases of missing children. Investigators believed Asha had planned her departure. The book bag she packed, the items she took with her, all suggested preparation. But experts were baffled. As one FBI agent noted, there was no clear reason for her to run away. No family dysfunction, no academic struggles, no apparent trigger. Ben Armini from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children pointed out that most runaways are at least 12 years old. 9-year-olds simply don't execute plans like this. And then came the detail that changed everything about the case. Another witness came forward, reporting they'd seen something that morning. A young girl matching Asha's description being pulled into a dark green car. A vehicle from the 1970s, possibly a Ford Thunderbird or Lincoln Mark I. Chapter 4. The B. OOKB-AG. The months passed with no breaks in the case. Billboards went up across North Carolina featuring Asha's bright, smiling face. Reward money grew, but there were no answers. Then, on August 3rd, 2001, 18 months after Asha disappeared, construction workers were digging an access road for a new home in Burke County. The site was about 30 miles north of where Asha had last been seen. They unearthed something that had been deliberately buried. Asha's book bag, double-wrapped in black plastic garbage bags and concealed in the dirt along Highway 18. Inside the bag were items that didn't belong to Asha. A new Kids on the Block concert t-shirt with a red collar. A library book called McElligot's Pool by Dr. Seuss, borrowed from Asha's elementary school but not checked out by her. And most critically, Asha's undershirt was found with the bag. The book bag and its contents were sent to the FBI lab in Quantico for analysis. But in 2001, forensic technology had its limitations. Years would pass with no significant developments. The Degree family held on to hope. Aquila insisted she believed her daughter was still alive. The community never forgot. But as the years stretched into decades, the case went cold. Until 2024, when everything changed. Chapter 5. The Breakthrough. In September 2024, the FBI, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, and North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation executed multiple search warrants on properties in Shelby. The community watched as federal agents spent days searching homes on Cherryville Road. Authorities seized multiple items of interest. Most notably, they towed away a vintage car, a 1964 AMC Rambler, registered to a man named Roy Lee Dedman. When the search warrants were unsealed, the documents revealed something shocking. DNA testing had been performed on that hair found on Asha's undershirt, the one discovered with her buried book bag back in 2001. The DNA matched a close blood relative of two persons of interest, two sisters who had been teenagers in the year 2000. Lizzie Dedman, 16 at the time, and Sarah Dedman, 15 years old when Asha disappeared. And there was more. The Dedman family had lived in Cleveland County in February 2000. They owned a green vehicle consistent with witness descriptions. And one of Roy Lee Dedman's daughters had a history that investigators found deeply disturbing. In September 2024, a man came forward with information about a party he'd attended in the mid-2000s. He'd been in his 20s then, occasionally frequenting bars and parties with the Dedman sisters. At one particular gathering, he witnessed Lizzie Dedman, heavily intoxicated, sobbing uncontrollably. Between tears, she said something that chilled everyone who heard it. "I killed Asha Degree." According to the witness, Sarah Dedman immediately grabbed her sister's head and told her to shut up. The man said Sarah's reaction seemed out of character, almost panicked. He contacted authorities and agreed to take a polygraph test. He passed. Chapter 6. The text messages. In October 2024, investigators obtained access to Lizzie Foster's iCloud account. Lizzie Dedman had since married and changed her name, but authorities discovered text messages between the two sisters that they described as containing messages of interest. The specific content of those texts hasn't been fully released to the public, but search warrant documents indicate they're significant enough to support the ongoing investigation. In February 2025, authorities seized the cell phones belonging to Roy Dedman, Lizzie Foster, and Sarah Capel, who had also married and changed her name since 2000. The warrants revealed that investigators believe Asha Degree was the victim of a homicide. They believe her body was concealed. And they believe that because the Dedman sisters were teenagers at the time, adult assistance from their parents would have been necessary to execute and cover up the crime. Roy and Connie Dedman were officially identified as suspects. But by the time of the investigation's breakthrough, one key suspect had already died. David Teddy, the attorney for Roy Lee Dedman, has speculated that the evidence will link someone who is now deceased to the circumstances of Asha's disappearance. As of October 2025, no arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. But Sheriff Alan Norman has stated publicly that investigators are closer than they've ever been. The Dedman family has denied any connection to Asha's disappearance. Chapter 7. The questions that remain. Even with these developments, fundamental questions remain unanswered. Why would a shy, cautious 9-year-old girl pack a bag and walk into a storm in the middle of the night? What could have convinced her to leave the safety of her home? Some investigators theorize that Asha was groomed, that someone cultivated a relationship with her, perhaps promising her something, convincing her that leaving that night was necessary or exciting. The items in her book bag, The ones that didn't belong to her suggest someone may have given her things to create a connection. But how would that grooming have occurred? The Degree family was protective. They didn't have internet access. Asha's world was small and supervised. Did she meet someone at church? At school? During basketball practice? And if the Deadman sisters were involved, how did teenagers orchestrate something this complex? The timeline is bewildering. Multiple witnesses saw Asha walking alone. She was seen being pulled into a car. Her book bag was found 30 miles away, 18 months later, deliberately buried. That suggests planning, transportation, and the ability to conceal evidence over a long period of time. The DNA on Asha's undershirt points to the Deadmans, but exactly how that DNA was transferred remains unclear. Was it secondary transfer? Direct contact? And which family member does that DNA actually belong to? The confession at the party happened years after Asha disappeared. Was it genuine guilt? Drunken fantasy? Or something in between? And perhaps most hauntingly, where is Asha now? It's been 25 years since Asha Degree walked into the darkness and never came home. Her mother, Aquila, still believes her daughter is alive. She holds on to hope because, as she says, that's all she has left. The investigation continues. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office has increased its reward to $75,000. The FBI has added $25,000 more, a total of $100,000 for information leading to an arrest and conviction. In a video posted in February 2025, Lieutenant Jordan Bowen of the Cleveland County Investigative Division spoke about the case. He's the same age as Asha would be now. He said working on this investigation makes it hit home. Sheriff Alan Norman has repeatedly stated that someone in Cleveland County knows where Asha is. He's asked that person to come forward, to relieve themselves of the burden they've carried for 25 years. Eventually, he said, we're going to find you and we're going to bring you to justice. The case of Asha Degree reminds us that even in small towns where everyone knows everyone, darkness can hide in plain sight. It reminds us that children can vanish in moments, and families can spend decades searching for answers. But it also reminds us that justice, no matter how delayed, can still find its way to the truth. If you have any information about the disappearance of Asha Degree, please contact the FBI at 1-800-C-ALLFB-I or the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office at 704-484-4822. This has been the Unsolved Archive. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into cases that refuse to be forgotten. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and never stop asking questions.